It's time for Blessed to Play on EWTN Radio, uncovering the role that faith plays in the lives of sports professionals from around the country. And now, here's your host, Ron Meyer.
Fire, score!
My guest today is Brian Polian. He's in his first year as Director of Athletics at John Carroll University in University Heights, Ohio, in the Cleveland area. Long history of coaching in Division I athletics, in particular football, with stints at Michigan State, Buffalo, Baylor, the University of Central Florida, Notre Dame. He had his own gig at the University of Nevada, and he was at Louisiana State University, where he was the general manager of the football team, and has spent a season under Brian Kelly as a special teams coordinator. And now he's at a Division III institution. We'll talk about his career, but also his philosophy now in his first time being an athletic director at John Carroll. I'd like to welcome Brian Polian to Blessed to Play. Brian, so great to have you on.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you.
Well, this is quite a career that you do have and have had, and I have to mention that you come from some good stock. In fact, your dad is a Hall of Fame NFL executive, Bill Polian, a Super Bowl winner. He's probably the icon of NFL executives, but you had, obviously growing up Polian, you had all this expertise around you. How did your dad rub off on you early on?
The love of the game, for sure. The value of the players and the coaches above all else, because without them, executives, scouts, administrators wouldn't have jobs. The appreciation for the relationships and the bonds that you build with the players and the coaches and the staff. And I was commenting to my wife a little earlier this week. This will be the first time in 25 years as a professional, and then probably, a decade and a half before that I'm not going to football practice on Thanksgiving. I would, even when I was in college, I would come home and I'd go to Colts practice with my dad, and then you're coaching and you're always going to football practice. And so I just kind of grew up around it and have never wanted to do anything else. And I don't know if I'm a little bit lucky for that. I don't know if I'm a little bit simple for that. It's maybe a combination of the both, but I grew up in a very unique way, and it kind of led me on my journey.
Well, obviously you had this love for football, and your dad communicated this passion for the game, but you had to embrace it yourself. And in fact, you played at John Carroll University. So talk about why you went to JCU to become a student athlete there.
It's interesting. I'm back in this atmosphere now in NCAA Division III, and there's a misnomer that Division III athletes are here because they are not as competitive, or they don't want to dedicate the amount of time that it takes to play at the higher levels. And the reality of it is, in most cases, that is incorrect. We're just all given different gifts by God, and I wasn't physically capable. My dream was to play in the Ivy League. I was just not physically capable of doing that. And I found a level that was right for me. And to be honest with you, even at a place like John Carroll, which has got a storied football tradition, I was a role player. I was a good role player, but a role player. So I found myself here because I wanted a faith-based institution. I wanted a place where I was going to get a great education and have a network when I came out of school. But I also wanted to be at a place where people cared about competing, and that going out and trying to improve daily and be your best and win the rivalry game and try to make the playoffs on the national scale, that was important. And I found those things here.
Well, I want to talk about this, your career, your obviously being at a number of stops along the way. And Brian, I got to admit, you're pretty spoiled here. You were at Michigan State, and there was a guy by the name of Nick Saban who was there as an offensive graduate assistant. Talk about just rubbing shoulders with Nick and learning from him there.
We didn't rub shoulders. I got yelled at a lot, but we didn't rub shoulders. That was like getting your master's degree in football 2 weeks after having graduated from undergrad. I learned a lot from Coach Saban. I took lessons from when I was 22 years old that are with me still today in my leadership role of this department. And some things are as simple as there is exactly right and then there is wrong. You can't be 80% right. You either meet the standard, you either meet the expectation, or it's not correct, and you've got to go back and keep working on it. And there were little lessons like that. There were very simple methods of evaluating players that I still put to use today that I learned from Nick Saban just by sitting in the back of a staff room and listening to him talk about recruits and player evaluation. And so I learned a great deal in my time with Coach. Now, it was baptism by fire, and I caught my share of butt chewings, but I learned a lot in the time that I was with him.
Blessed to play Ron Meyer. We're chatting today with Brian Polian. He's the athletic director at John Carroll University, right outside of Cleveland, Ohio. All these stops along the way, Brian, you became known as one of the best recruiters in the country. You mentioned going back to your dad, it's about relationship building. So what was your formula for just getting a respected player to look into the institution that you were coaching at that time?
I just have always been driven by relationships and tried to be as authentic as I could be. I've never tried to be anybody else. I'm pretty comfortable in my own skin, and what I found was that young people appreciated that. They don't want you. For example, right now, when my last season coaching at LSU, there's music playing on at practice. I don't pretend to know who NBA Youngboy is or some of the guys that they listen to, and I'm open to learning about what they like, but I'm not going to get up there and start pretending to be something that I'm not. And I think that authenticity, the work ethic, and just the ability to communicate with all different groups of people naturally led to being an effective recruiter. Now, in the end, I didn't develop that reputation until I got to a place like Notre Dame where, you've got a really good product to recruit to there, right? Stanford, that it's not really difficult to get people interested in Stanford. So I was, the recognition that I received as a recruiter wasn't part of byproduct of the places that I was working at. Like the best recruiter in the nation is not often, come from Tulsa. These places that produce these recognitions are often places that it's easy to recruit to.
Yeah, and you always say, the head coach always gets they always get the props for the recruits, but it's always someone behind the scenes is actually doing the recruiting and making the head coach look good. So you had stints under Charlie Weiss, you mentioned Saban, Jim Harbaugh, and then you get your own gig at the University of Nevada. And talk about your just coaching philosophies. You have all these different coaches who are in your head now and strategies and, just how to run a team, be the CEO of a team. Talk about how you embraced that time at the University of Nevada.
Well, my only regret looking back on that time is that I didn't work for Brian Kelly before I got that job, because I think Brian Kelly is the best manager of an organization and best communicator with a team that I've ever been around. And if I ever do if life works out wildly and I ever get a chance again in my career to lead an organization or a football team, a lot of what I'll put into place I learned from BK. That said, the best piece of advice I got was from Kevin Sumlin, who I had been with at Texas A&M and had left Kevin to go take the Nevada job. And Kevin told me that the difference between leaders that can make it and those who can't is the ability to have the uncomfortable conversation. That often confrontation, conflict, whatever you want to call it, those conversations can be healthy. They can help clear the air. They can get people moving in the right direction. But a lot of leaders are not comfortable initiating those conversations. And so that's always something that stuck with me. When I look back at my time at Nevada, my first year I was too concerned about processes and procedures. Recruiting needed to get fixed. Academic support needed to get fixed. We had to hire a trainer. We had to hire an equipment person. Those things are important, but the relationships with the student athletes and investing more time in knowing each player individually, figuring out what made them tick, those were more important. And unfortunately, in year one, I spent too much time focused on processes and procedures, and those things, they can get fixed. I recognized quickly I need to reset, and I recognized with the help of some older players like Joel Bitonio, who now is an all-pro guard for the Cleveland Browns, Cody Fajardo, he's going to play quarterback for the Alouettes this weekend and compete for a Grey Cup. Those guys came in and said, hey, listen, we like what you're doing, but you need to be around the players more. And that was a wake-up call for me, and it's a lesson that I will never forget, that I put into use wherever I am in leadership, and that's relationships with our people come first.
Blessed to play Ron Meyer chatting today with Brian Polian, longtime head coach, a coordinator, assistant coach in Division I collegiate football with some big name programs, and now went to the Division III level at John Carroll University, his alma mater, to be the athletic director. And Brian, there's an uncanny characteristics about John Carroll and a pipeline. I'd say it's maybe a Polian pipeline, but there's a number of people in the NFL who have really good careers at the general manager position. I think Tom Telesco, your brother Brian has an NFL career, and there's a number of people there, and also behind the scenes as well in public relations. But it just amazes me that this Division III institution has so many people working in the NFL.
Yeah, it's a really unique story, and it actually starts in the 50s. Don Shula is a graduate of John Carroll University, and we play in Don Shula Stadium, and so our ties back to the NFL go all the way back there. But there was a time here in the mid-'90s when there were a couple offshoots of a couple different family trees. My dad, Bill, was the GM of the Panthers at the time. He hired my brother Chris. He hired Dave Caldwell, who went on to become the GM of the Jags. He hired Tom Telesco, who went on to become and is still the GM of the Chargers. Greg Roman, who was the longtime coordinator with the Ravens, had his own connection in the league and got in. Josh McDaniels and Nick Caserio and Dave Ziegler had another offshoot. And so I'm very proud of this. We have currently 43 alumnus working in the National Football League. And so for a 3,000 student Jesuit college on the east side of Cleveland to produce 43 people that are working in the most competitive professional sports industry in our country, that's pretty incredible. And I think it goes back to kind of the university's mission of mind, body, and spirit. Like, not our people leave here critical thinkers. They're smart, but they're also competitive. They're well-rounded. They're not one-trick ponies. They can do a little bit of everything. And then the network kind of feeds itself. I remember a time when I was at Notre Dame and we had to hire an entry-level coach, and Coach Kelly said to me, hey, listen, I want you to handle this for me. And the first thing I did was call back to John Carroll and say, who's your best GA? Who's the best young coach? And they gave me a guy by the name of Pat Kramer, who was with us at Notre Dame for 2 or 3 seasons and is now with the Atlanta Falcons. So, I think when young people come out of John Carroll now and they get these opportunities, they understand that there's a standard and that those of us who've come before them are looking at them and saying, you better understand there's a standard now and you're going to represent us well. And that has led to this really unique situation in the league and our university. Yeah,
a university that builds character for sure. I want to pick up on that theme, mind, body, and spirit, with our guest today, Brian Polian. He's the athletic director at John Carroll University, Cleveland, Ohio, and Blessed to Play returns right after this.
O God, creator of the universe, who extends your paternal concern over every creature and guides the events of history to the goal of salvation, we acknowledge your fatherly love when you break the resistance of mankind, and in a world torn by strife and discord, you make us ready for reconciliation. Renew for us the wonders of your mercy. Send forth your Spirit, that he may work in the intimacy of hearts, that enemies may begin to dialogue, that adversaries may shake hands, and peoples may encounter one another in harmony. May all commit themselves to the sincere search for true peace, which will extinguish all arguments, for charity, which overcomes hatred, for pardon, which disarms revenge. Amen.
Welcome back to Blessed to Play. Ron Meyer joined today by Brian Polian. He's the current athletic director at John Carroll University right outside of Cleveland, Ohio. What a career he has had as a coach, coordinator, head coach in Division I football with the likes of Michigan State, Notre Dame, Stanford, LSU, had his own gig at the University of Nevada for the Wolfpack. And now he's, it's first time being an athletic director. And Brian, I know, your philosophies, I want to say, faith, family, and football have trickled down to you being the athletic director at John Carroll. But talk about these core philosophies, including faith, that propel you to do what you do there at John Carroll.
Well, I think philosophically, my personal view of our profession, whether it be coaching or as an administrator, is very much in line with the mission of the university, and that is to serve others. And it's a Jesuit mission. It's a Catholic mission. For me personally, it's always been about service for others, that the joy in my life comes from helping others be the best that they can be, and enjoying their success and being part of something bigger than myself. That's where my joy comes from. So it's natural that these two philosophies would mesh together, because they're so closely related. We talk about here at John Carroll University that we want to produce men and women for others. Mm-hmm. Self-centered people don't like it here. Other-centered people like it, because service kind of permeates the whole place. It's in our DNA. And I believe that those who coach, I believe that those who work in athletic administration, those who work in higher ed, they're wired the exact same way, that, the service and being other-centered is why they do what they do. So it was a very natural fit.
Let's talk about the pursuit of excellence at a Catholic institution. And this is what I find interesting about you, because obviously being a Division I coach, you're playing in front of 80,000 people. There's a lot of media attention. There's everything is geared and centered on that, and you're not going to get that at a Division III school, obviously. So you're coming here to really form the person. You're pursuing excellence, but there's a much greater attribute to what you're doing than just winning ball games or having your coaches win games.
Yes, there's no doubt. Now, I'll be the first to admit there are times that I miss being in front of 103,000 people in Tiger Stadium. I mean, that's a pretty intoxicating feeling to compete in those venues. Mm-hmm. But I know this: the way that my heart would beat on the sidelines when Notre Dame would play USC or LSU would play Alabama, my heart beats the exact same way when I'm here supporting our football team who's playing Mount Union, or our women's soccer team who upset the number 8 ranked Case Western team Sunday in the NCAA tournament to reach the Sweet 16. Like, my heart beats the same exact way. One of the reasons I enjoyed my time at Notre Dame so much was I think that Notre Dame was a little bit of a throwback in the Division 1A world, in the Power 5 world. Formation and your ability to impact the lives of young people, that's still important at a place like Notre Dame. I'm sure it's important at others too. I can only speak to my own personal experience. But even at the highest levels with the brightest lights and the amount of dollars that's involved, the university itself and the athletic programs were still in the business of trying to impact young people's lives and help them to be better. And I always found that incredibly rewarding, and that is the same reward that we find here. We're not having a lot of conversations about professional sports here. Mm-hmm. We're having conversations about how the lessons we learn through athletics and competition are going to prepare our young people to go work for the 500 companies where Carroll alum are CEOs. The accounting firms that hire our incredible graduates from, when they go into higher ed and to coaching, we are preparing them, and we're trying to be impactful in their lives. We're just not necessarily getting them ready for the NBA draft or the NFL draft.
Yeah, forming people and forming men. I've had the pleasure of having Lou Holtz on this show as well as Jerry Faust, and what was pressed upon me is that their faith, which is something that's inward, comes out outward in the way they treat people and the way they form people. Like you were saying that, even at the NCAA Division I level, I mean, it's a small percentage of athletes or football players are going to have NFL careers. And if they do, it's not going to last very long. So coaches have this really important task of forming the person to be people of character. And that's what's going on there, it sounds like, at John Carroll University. What is going to bring that smile to your face? I mean, you're not going to see any of your coaches go to bowl games at John Carroll or, be on CBS or ESPN regularly. What is going to bring a smile to your face that happens with the coaches and also the student athletes in your athletic program?
Well, please don't misunderstand. We want to compete. Like, we want to win national championships at our level, and that is important to us. But for me, the competition has always been a part of the experience. It's been a great part of it, but the best parts were never out on the field. The best parts are at practice, or riding a bus coming home from a game, or being in the locker room and seeing a sophomore wide receiver that has not said 12 words to you at practice, and all of a sudden you walk through the locker room and you see that personality come out and you discover how funny this person is. I think back to a specific, Chris Fink was a walk-on wide receiver at Notre Dame that eventually earned a scholarship, who was very, very serious on the practice field. And then, on occasion I'd walk through the locker room and he's holding court in the corner. You see this personality that I'd never seen before. You get to see how funny he is, how well respected, how much joy he brings to the room. And those were the moments that I loved the best. It was the sneaking off to a country concert with the equipment guy at LSU, Louis Bourgeois. Like, those are the things that people don't ever know about, that sense of community that athletics brings. Those are the best moments. And frankly, it's funny, my dad's 80 years old now. Thankfully, he's in great health. If you asked him, what does he miss? ESPN being on television, competing in Super Bowls, Canton, the recognition, all the things, he will tell you he misses the camaraderie of being on a team. Mm-hmm. And fortunately for me now, instead of being a part of one team, I'm a part of 24 different teams. Yeah. So I shift from basketball to women's soccer to, back and forth, and there's great joy in that.
Yeah, that's great stuff. In fact, you authored a book not too long ago in 2021. It was called Coaching Generation Z, Honor the Relationships. Tell us something about Generation Z. Sometimes we get a lot of negative information on a certain generation, but what is positive about Generation Z from your eyes?
Well, if you're ever looking for a silver lining from the pandemic, the growth and the amount of adversity that Gen Z had to deal with when everybody endured the pandemic, they are coming out the back of it much stronger, much more resilient. And I look at young people that I dealt with at that time, and I just remember being so incredibly proud of them. As it relates to, what's unique about them, I would tell you this, and this is a lot of the basis of my beliefs despite having so much information at their fingertips, despite the ability to text, direct message, Snapchat, all these different avenues that they can communicate quickly and easily, Gen Z still craves interpersonal interactions. Mm-hmm. They want us to sit and talk with them. They want us to be interested in their lives. And when we do that, when we build relationships and we connect with them, that is when we support them the best and help them be the best that they can be. And I think that that's a really unique thing given the times that we live in. And it is a guiding principle of how we try to conduct our organization here at John Carroll.
Yep, service for others, and Gen Zers are certainly going to benefit from that as well. And this has been a special show for me. I have one daughter who graduated from John Carroll, and I have another one who's enrolled there currently. So I like what Brian Polian stands for, and his career is just unbelievable. And now he's taking his talents in the role of athletic director at John Carroll University. Brian, thanks so much for the time. I really do appreciate it, and the best of luck to you. And I know things will turn out great for your athletic program and what you do there right at John Carroll. Thanks so much for joining us here on Blessed to Play.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Hey, Blessed to Play fans, check us out on the web at blessedtoplay.com. That's blessed2play.com. You can like us on Facebook and hit us up on the platform X at Blessed to Play. For Brian Polian, I'm Ron Meyer. We'll catch you next time right here on Blessed to Play.
You've been listening to Blessed to Play with host Ron Meyer on the EWTN Global Catholic Network. If you have a question or comment about today's show, feel free to email us at info@blessedtoplay.com. That's blessed, 2, play.com. You can also connect with the show on the web at www.blessedtoplay.com. Again, that's blessed, 2, play.com. Join us again next time for Blessed to Play on the EWTN Global Catholic Network.